Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Murals in the Market Live. What is happening? Another beautiful day in Eastern Market. It's a little bit chillier than it is regularly. However, it is another beautiful day. Man, we have been rocking it the last couple weeks. A couple weeks ago, we talked to people about the vote that was coming up, and that was crazy. Now we had it coming up, and we're still going with that. Then last week we had Ivan on, dude cracking my head about staying cultural and being a part of his thing. So I was super about that, man. And it's good to hear like young guys who are coming up, you know, and have a different perspective on it, because a lot of times you get these older guys who are just been in the game for a long time and they've been kind of jaded. But Ivan is new, man, and he's up and coming, and he's coming at you, and he's teaching the youth, man. So that was dope. Good morning, everybody. I see a lot of hellos out there. I'm going to start trying to pay more attention to the feed so I can ask more questions when they pop up, because if you have a question for the artist, I would love to be able to give you that information. So I'm definitely going to try to pay a little more attention to that, wave to more people, and say what's up. Man, this week it is going to be awesome. Earlier in the year, we talked to Rick Williams, a good friend of mine. Rick has been a staple in Detroit for forever. He did his thing in the sneaker game. Now he's doing his thing in the design game. And he was one half of who we're talking to today on the other side of this mural. And it's always cool to get what I call the other side. What's up, Rick, man? I see you out there. Thank you, man. We on old man time, so we can wake up early enough to catch stuff like this. If you don't wake up in time to catch stuff like this, you can always check it out on Murals in the Market in their feed. It lives there forever. So if you ever want to check us out or check out our old Instagram live, or even go check out Rick's, you can do that here and go and make that happen. All right. Another couple things I wanted to talk about. Phil Simpson and I, man, met with a couple days ago. Dream of mine is to work with Phil on a gig, and finally, man, we're working on some secret sauce. He's going to get that to me. He's got a project going on right now that I can't say nothing about, but he's about to crack heads with that. So shout out to Phil Simpson. And I want to let everybody know, not only do we do Murals in the Market Live, but we also do, hello, Marsha. We do tours of Murals in the Market. We do e-bike and walking tours. So if you ever want to come out and see what we have going on a more intimate level, hang out with me, and you get to hear all the inside secrets from all the artists that I get to talk to on these lives. So if you want to come out, check that out at Ride Detroit. We go all year round, so as long as Mother Nature keeps the ground clear and keeps us able to ride, we'll ride. But we will walk in the winter, man. And we do tours for all the way down to middle school, man. As long as the kiddos get it, I'm down to do it. So I've had some inquiries about schools. Let me know, hit me up. Once again, you can check that out, ridedetroit.com. You can shoot me an email there, or you can give me a call at Electric Avenue Bikes, Woodward and Mack Avenue. The number there is 313-752-1186. You can definitely hit me up over there and ask me some questions about getting these kids out here and getting them inundated in some cool-ass art, all right? So, without further ado, I do see that today's guest has joined in. So let me see if I can get this technology going. But ladies and gentlemen, pops up, man, we are going to be talking to Brandan Bmike Odums out of New Orleans. Voila.
Hey, peace.
Perfect timing. What's happening, brother?
What's up? I can't complain. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's nice for you being inside, man. I'm out here. It's a little chillier outside on these Detroit streets, but
I can imagine. It's a beautiful day in New Orleans today. We in the 70s out here.
Oh, don't talk to me like that, man. I'm about to hop on a plane, man, put a couple masks on and come chill. I hope you got an extra bedroom. I say that, man, all the time, but this might be real because it just dropped like 20 degrees overnight in Detroit.
Wow. Yeah, we won't get there, but I know y'all used to it though. I know y'all used to it.
Right. We were talking yesterday about the similarities between New Orleans and Detroit. This definitely ain't one of them. So we'll get into the ones that they are, man. But What's up with you, man? How you doing?
I can't complain, trying to stay busy. These are times like Toni Morrison said, these are the times that artists get to work. So I've been working.
I see that, man. I mean, your Instagram is popping, 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 man. I mean, we'll talk about that in a second because I got to ask questions about that because you have just really, I've been paying more attention, obviously, through Murals in the Market, man, but the last couple of years have just been insanely busy for you, it seems like, man.
Yeah, it's been a blessing, man. It's painting is like a conversation, and what you find, the more you talk, the more people listen. The more people listen, the more you want to talk. So, yeah, it's been a blessing to be able to stay engaged and to stay active. So I'm blessed.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we'll get into how busy you are. We'll get into current projects and all that jazz. But let's go all the way back because people, they always want to know where you got started, man. And I mean, where you got started. I mean, when
Right,
was the
right.
first time you remember as a child saying, I enjoy art more really than anything?
I mean, it was just one of those things that I always, well, the affirmation of my peers, I was always told that I did it well. Before I even knew that this was something that was like a skill, it was just something that my friends was like, oh, you're really good at that. I remember drawing way back in first, second grade, and everybody just being excited about what I created. And I always share this memory. I have this one memory of one time a friend of mine in school, I think I was in first grade or second grade, he asked me to draw something for him. And so I remember drawing it for him and I gave it to him, and I remember he erased my name and he put his name on it. And that was like a moment of understanding that this thing has value to other people as well. I'm like, oh dang.
So
So
wait. He erased his name, and he was really just trying to front like it was his
I
work?
guess so. I guess so. I remember catching him doing it, and he took the eraser, erased my name at the bottom, and he wrote his name. I guess he was trying to front or give it to somebody else and say, look what I did. But it was definitely one of those moments when I'm like, oh dang, there's some real value to this. Um, Beyond just what it does for me, this is doing something for other people. And that was like an early lesson. So it's just something I always wanted to do because I saw how much it gave me a sense of purpose even at a young age. Um, and then you have the scenarios where it's like um, teachers and people who were put instruction over me with like, yo, you're gonna be an artist. And so it's like once you hear it so much, you're like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. Um, and then as I got older, I just continued to pursue, art classes, art programs. So yeah, my entire like school from grade school, high school was all like trying to be as artistic as I could. Um, yeah, so when I graduated high school, I thought I was done with art, and so I went to college for filmmaking because I felt like, I did that. Let me try something else, and so I stopped painting, etc., for like 8 years from when I graduated high school. So it was something I thought I was gonna put down forever, um, and I got into,
Because you didn't even
yeah.
dabble, nothing?
Well, I felt like my artistic expression was done through the camera. This is at a time, this is 2003 to 2010. And so this was the time where like DSLRs and were kind of taking over. So it just was a moment where there was a shift creatively with the camera and with photography, with videography. So that's what I thought I was doing.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, and so the way I got back into street art or into what introduced me to using spray paint was doing music videos and uh, and having to find these abandoned spaces in New Orleans post Katrina. These artists looking for these backdrops and these like abandoned looking spaces with graffiti everywhere, and that's how I got really reconnected to the craft, to the world of graffiti, the culture. And I found myself trying to redo my own stuff. I'm going back in these spaces with spray cans instead of cameras. And yeah, that's how I got into it. That's how I got started.
I was gonna ask because I saw that you had done some editing, in the past, and then I was like, well, I don't know. I know you don't know this because you didn't probably do any research on it because most people don't do research on the interviewer. But I used to work in TV as well. I used to work
Oh,
at one of
word,
the
dope.
NBC affiliates in town, and Jesse actually, who works with Meals in the Market, also used to work at that very same TV station.
Oh,
And a
that's
lot of
super
what
dope.
I am, yeah, man, a lot of what I am today what came from that. You know, I didn't want to be in front of the camera necessarily, but a lot of the stuff that I picked up as far as work ethic and technologically, I was just picking up all kinds of stuff, played a big part in what I am now. And so I was going to ask you about that, man. Did that moment in time, you know, play a part in your life?
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to my people in there. Shout out to Q. Um, so yeah, definitely. I think for me, there's so much backstory to that as well. Like, not only was I working at a TV station locally in the city, but was organizing in college a bunch of other young artists and creatives. We created a collective called 2 Cent that the homie Q that just commented was a part of. And so that was a moment not only of like understanding the method or the means as like using this tool, using this medium to communicate. It was also a moment of understanding the responsibility and the power of of these mediums, and the responsibility and power of speaking your voice and understanding how to, you know, to take control of your story. So we were engaged in that as a social practice, as a almost as a form of social justice early on. You know, we were tackling issues in our community that we felt were important, that people needed to hear. So it was like a real time lesson to me in terms of what is an artist supposed to do? Like, how are we supposed to engage? What is our responsibility? And these are lessons I was learning through the camera, because it was a little bit easier to like synthesize that responsibility when you think about, okay, I'm communicating directly to an audience. This communication has impact. So those were the lessons I was learning, as well as how to work with a collective, which is what typically happens when you know, even the best muralists or street artists, at some point you got to figure out how to communicate and work with a collective of people to get out the vision. So working on production sets, etc., really also challenge that skill set to say, okay, how can these individuals come together for the sake of this one vision? So yeah, I learned a lot. Another thing I learned from those moments was how to like reinterpret the messages from the elders and the messages from community, because I worked at a public access station. So it was a lot of community members, a lot of political members, a lot of people who were going on there just to speak their words, to get on their soapbox. So a lot of that work was like, okay, how can I listen and interpret using the art? You know what I mean? And that's something I still do to this day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you take an approach to your art, do you look at it in a different now, like now that you've worked so much with, you know, technology and audiovisual, do you look at it from that standpoint or from a paint artist standpoint, you know, strictly from that? Like, do you think, all right, this color is going to look good on TV, you know, so I should use that?
Nah, if anything, I think the TV aspect helped me figure out, I guess, simplify things in a way. I think it was a combination of understanding like people's attention span, and also a combination of like looking at what's next to murals. You know what I mean? Typically, when you're painting on the street, your competition is advertisements. You know, those are the visual competition, if you will. And so for me, the thing I try to do most often is to figure out how to communicate as efficient and as quickly as possible. Um, I think in like advertisement, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like an 8 second rule that says people have 8 seconds. If they look at a billboard, you have 8 seconds to communicate something to them before they like get distracted or tune you out or drive by. And so for me, with a mural, I try to think about that same thing. Like, what is going to be communicated in this first 8 seconds of somebody walking up to it or driving past it or looking at an image of it? So often for me, it's about simplifying the message so it's not lost in translation. You're not trying to decipher what it is. That's normally what I'm pulling from the lessons I've learned throughout my life.
Mhm. So you're working in television, then you get reconnected with street art through working in television. What was the next step for you?
Truthfully, it was New Orleans is a beautiful place, and at the time, this is like 2013. New Orleans is going through a type of transition in terms of spaces, because all space is political, as any person who paints in the street, or anybody who lives in urban cities, you know, space is political. The spaces that are neglected for a reason. You know, the spaces that are benefiting from investment it's typically for a reason. And so in New Orleans post Katrina, we saw this happen in almost this dramatic real time, where you saw communities of color, you saw communities that were poor, that looked as if the hurricane had just hit yesterday, even though it was 8, 9 years after the storm. But yet the national message was that New Orleans was moving forward, that everything was back to normal, etc. So for me, I found myself painting in the street at a time where it was very hard to divorce it from its political nature. It was very hard for me to paint a mural or paint an illegal piece in an abandoned space without understanding or asking the questions: why is this building still in the condition that it's in, or why is this apartment complex still abandoned? So for me, that was a part of my intentionalizing of the process. You know, I talk about the difference between how you create and why you create. And so for me, that was
Yeah.
the process of understanding my why. It was like painting in those spaces, but it was very hard to just do what I saw other graffiti writers do. Because when I went to try to do lettering and words, it was this thought that people who live nearby, who were struggling to try to piece together their lives, I wanted them to see something that didn't just remind them of neglect, but that gave them a sense of hope and a sense of idea or intention. And so that's when I started to transition to doing portraits of Black history, portraits of important, powerful Black people, because I felt like, yo, this can send a message directly to those people who are living nearby, to let them know that even though this moment is not at its best, there's so much that we can understand and learn. And so, yeah, so for me, what happened was, as I started to make that transition in those first year or so of me using spray paint, immediately people started to pay attention in the community. People started to ask questions like, how did this come? How did this happen? Who painted this portrait of Malcolm X? Where did it come from? You know, and that curiosity sort of grew this space that I was painting in into almost like this underground art experience, where other artists, other people were equally going back into this space to sort of add their words, add their pictures. We had people wheat pasting on the walls. It's just beautiful moment, and we called it Project B. And it was just this beautiful moment of alchemy, where there was an abandoned housing project that we all just went in and started painting in. And for like 3 months, it was like this underground experience where if you knew about it, you went out there to check it out. It got to the point where teachers were bringing their students back there. And it was just this amazing experience. And so for me, early into my like public art endeavor or street art endeavor, whatever you want to call it, to have that type of, to be a part of something like that, it immediately showed me that, okay, there's something bigger with this as well. It's not just about this one wall I'm painting. Like, this is really doing something that's in this entire community. So that was called Project B. It got shut down in a violent way because the Housing Authority of New Orleans that owned that property, they saw it as a threat what we were doing. So they went in and
Saw it
boarded
as
up
a
all
threat.
yeah, they saw it as a liability. They saw these people back in this abandoned space, and they were like, "Yo, y'all can't do that." So they basically went in and boarded up all the windows and doors and shut it down. But for me, that was just the beginning. So I went into another space and started doing the same thing. That one was allowed to be open to the public. Yeah, they got that monster engine.
Yep, I ain't back up. They about to try to run. They must have. Everybody just got off work at the butcher right now because they
Oh,
all
I
out
remember
here.
that.
Looking wild. Yeah.
I remember that. It was some wild smells out there. I remember that. We were out there painting like, Lord, what is that smell? It's like,
Yo,
oh, there's a dumpster full of carcasses over there.
I tell people, man, you know, Eastern Market is a working market. It's not like
Definitely.
some nostalgic place, you know, that you can come just hang out. There's people
Oh, nah.
butchering. There's people growing
Yeah.
vegetables. There's farming going. There's manure out here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man.
Yeah, look, Rick remember? Yeah, we were in there. I remember we got on the lift and we were looking, and like right at the building, like right next door, there was like this little dumpster, and it was filled with, I don't know what type of animal was in there, but it was something in there. We were like, Lord, we can't. Yeah, it was some wild smells.
Now,
But
when we used to come down here as kids, they used to like skin stuff, like you said, and they would just pile the skins up in the summer, like outside.
maybe
And
that's what it was.
And like this is way before it was a little more civilized. I mean, they might
Lamb,
put them
that's
in
what
a
it was.
dumpster now, lamb. But now, yeah, and so now they just stack them up. But yeah, that's Eastern Market. But
It was
let
a
me let,
beautiful experience though.
yeah, we'll get to that. But go ahead. You remember where you were at?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So,
good.
so after that one got shut down, we had to yeah, shout out this thing. Like we had to go to another well, not had to, but I was into it then. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do, like painting in the public space, engaging with people. So I found myself in this other abandoned apartment complex painting. This time, however, it was a different response. The owners of that property were sort of curious about what was happening. So I challenged them. I said, let's open this up to the public, which was really like me trying to get myself out of trouble because I thought that they were like about to, because when they ran into me, I thought they were about to like, call police or whatever. But I was just like running it like, yo, I showed them pictures from the other project and I was like, yo, we should open this to the public, let the people experience it. And surprisingly, they said yes. It was like, if you get insurance, if you get police detail or whatever. So I reached out to all these artists that I met organically from that first experience. And I said, yo, we have an opportunity to do what we were doing there, but in a real way without having to look over our shoulders. So we all got together and we called that space Exhibit B. And it was still it's still one of my favorite memories of transforming that space into this art experience, this art, whatever you want to call it. It was over 35 artists that went in and transformed this apartment complex. And we invited the public to it, and that was open for 3-4 months. And it was just this constant, this constant flow of community, constant flow of stories of people walking in and saying, yo, you need to add my story on this wall because my family lived back here. And it was like, for sure, let's do that. It was moments of performances. Every weekend we tried to activate the space in another way. So we had like ciphers, we had DJ battles, we had car shows, and this was in a space that in New Orleans was so damaged from the neglect that nobody wanted to go back there. Everybody's like, nah, you don't go back there. Like there's nothing back there. But yet, because of the art, we transformed the space into something that was beautiful. It was this process of alchemy, and so that was sort of like a thing. Look, that's crazy to see that somebody said Exhibit B changed the trajectory of my life.
Trajectory of their life, bro.
And,
Changes
and,
the trajectory of their life.
and that was also for me too. All of us involved. This was something we saw in real time, like being a part of something that was so big, that was bigger than us. That every day we went back there, we saw the value it brought to other people. And so for me, that was like the crystallization of this idea that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is how I'm supposed to do it. And this is why I do it. So we ended that project with a bang. We had this block party called Block Power, and it was just this amazing experience. We had all these dope, like I said, I did music videos, so my background was in music. So I invited all these friends of mine to come help me close it out. Trombone Shorty, Erykah Badu, Dead Prez, David
Erykah
Banner.
Badu.
Oh yeah, we was lit in there. Yeah, so it was just this amazing. Like we had 10,000 people crammed into this abandoned apartment complex. The aerial views was just insane.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, after that, it was just like, okay, there was no question about it. There was no curiosity anymore around like, oh, is this what I'm supposed to do? I was like, nah, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm an artist, and this is how I use my artistry. And so, yeah, that's definitely how. And so now, since then, I have a space called Studio B, which is like the final
Wait.
form
No,
of that
no.
trilogy.
See, now we gonna skip in ahead. We jumping ahead now. We're gonna come to that.
Okay.
Hold on, because you talking all the talking. Let me get in here a second.
Yeah, no,
So
you said run it, so I'm like, okay,
no,
this is the
hold
connection.
on. I still gotta jump in here because I got. So now you're doing this, and what what was this? I usually ask people, what is the moment? What was that moment? Because
Uh-huh.
every artist has that moment where they say, you know what, this is it. And you just sort of
Yeah.
cracked into like, this was really that moment? Or was there another moment that was, that was like, yo, this is it?
No, I mean, I think for me, it was just like, it was a culmination of moments, but that Exhibit B was definitely the moment that said that removed all doubt. You know what I mean? It was this thing that like solidified. It was like the hardening of the concrete, whatever it is, like the water. I don't know what element of concrete hardens it, but whatever that element is, if it's the water, if it's oxygen, whatever that was, Exhibit B was the moment that hardened all the ingredients together. So there was many moments along the path that dropped ingredients in. You know what I mean? I think the fact that this happened for me a little bit older in my life, I was like 27, 28 at the time, and I had experienced so much in the past of like trying to be, of trying to make my work be important. You know, all the stuff I did with video and with the 2 Cent Collective that we have, it was this attempt to say, you know, we're gonna reach this many people, or we're gonna get on TV. It was just an attempt to be in the forefront. You know what I mean? And so after exaggerating that desire, this came at a time when I was no longer interested in that aspect of it. So it was really just about, okay, what is the impact of this? Like, what is this actively doing? Not what it's doing for me, but what is this doing as a utility? You know what I mean? As a function. Like, how is this artistry, or how is me creating on the street? What is that doing as a function, as a utility? Like, how is that a tool? And so for me, all those ingredients helped that moment to be what it was. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different like tidbits on the way. People who were in my life that made a strong impact in terms of showing me that this is not the way to go, this is the way to go, or this is how you should consider. A strong understanding of my history, knowing people like, you know, understanding the stories of Paul Robeson, the stories of Nina Simone, you know, all these things help crystallize the moment in a way that said, okay, I know it can't be any other way but this one right here.
Yeah.
What's up,
So,
Alfred Banks?
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, I'm looking at the feed. What does it feel like when people say things like Bmike is the legend, you know, and things like
That's the
that, man? I
homie.
mean,
That's the homie.
but you clearly made an impact, man. Like, you know, a long time ago, a woman came up to me and she got really mad at me because she used to always be like, thank you for what you do in the community. And I'd be like, hey, you know, it's other people, you know, I'm trying to be humble. But then she got real mad at me and she was like, no, man, you really need to own what you've done in the community and what you've done, man. And this is one of those times, man. Do you ever feel like, man, this is crazy that I've done all this and it's just me being me? But with that being said, you're leading a movement.
No, I mean, I like to think of my role as a concert of others, you know, as a choir of sorts. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm any type of solo singer. I think I'm just singing my part.
So you're doing this. So you're doing it.
No, real
I'm not
talk,
saying you're a solo
what's up,
singer. I'm
Reggie?
just saying, but you
Yeah,
know,
I
you're.
feel what you're saying. I feel what you're saying, but I feel like it's a relay race of sorts. You know what I mean? Like, I've been blessed that I was able to pick the baton up from people who ran super far and super fast and super strong, and I'm just doing the best that I can with the baton while I have it. You know what I mean? So I also don't think you get a gold star for doing what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Thank you.
I feel like this is what we supposed to be doing. And I remember mad people in my past have told me that. They'll be like, I'll go to give them flowers and they be like, nah, son, I don't get a gold star for what I'm supposed to do. And I feel that 100%. You know what I mean? I feel like the role we play, and yes, I'm not gonna front and say it doesn't help, or is it it doesn't feel nice to have, you know, nice things said, and I appreciate all those things, because it definitely, the affirmation definitely does help. You know what I mean? But I try to make a distinguish. I try to distinguish that that's not why I do it. So when it doesn't come, you don't feel like discouraged to the point to think, okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's a dope interview with Lo, why am I drawing a blank? With Maya Angelou. I'm sorry. There's a dope interview with Maya Angelou, her and Dave Chappelle. It's like an old video clip. And she's talking, and she said her advice to him was, she said, I don't pick it up and I don't put it down. She said, because if you pick up when people say, oh, you're good, you're the greatest, you're the best, she said, if you pick that up, then you also have to pick up when they say, oh, you're the worst, you used to be the best, you're no longer good. So she said she don't pick any of it up. And I try the best as I can. It's tough sometimes, but I try the best as I can to not pick it up, and not put it down the way the way she said. You did.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, man. It's funny that you were talking about, not getting praised for what you're supposed to do. Me and my dad used to say he never understood why football players like got so excited when they scored touchdowns. He was like, that's your damn job. Like, you get paid to score touchdowns. Like, you ain't doing nothing out of the regular. You know what I mean? By scoring a touchdown. So he used to do this crazy shit. Like, he would be in the kitchen and he would like slam the spoon down and he'd be like, I finished my food. And we'd be like, why are you bugging out? And he'd be like, I'm celebrating like a football player. And we'd be like, what? But that makes sense. You're not supposed to
Yeah,
celebrate some
but
shit you're supposed to do.
but I could understand in the midst of adversity, in the midst of like, you know, the obstacles, you know, that moment being a celebration. But I get the sentiment, you know what I mean? Like your job is to get it done. And so, you know, but yeah, I understand that we are motivated. You know, I think Instagram and all these platforms are a perfect example of like the metric system of success, in a way where you get graded, you get numbered, in terms of what everything on Instagram is like a grade. You know, you put a picture out, you instantly see your grade. It's like, oh, okay, I got a X amount of likes, a comment. So I think sometimes it's hard to distance yourself from that and to understand that what you do goes beyond those metrics, goes beyond that. You know, what you do right now might not be for the current population or the current audience. You know what I mean? It might be something that's going to hit 20 years from now. So that shouldn't discourage you from what you're doing. And we've seen examples of that. There's that dope documentary about the band called Death, you know what I mean? Out of Detroit, you know what I mean? So it's like seeing, that is Detroit, right? No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Man Called Death is Detroit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like what they did wasn't for the current audience, you know what I mean? What they did was for the audience 20 years later. So so you can't be moved by what you see in front of you. You can't be moved by the metric system of praise, I guess. That's what I try to remind myself, because something I do might not be for the instant, yes, that a boy, you know what I mean? It might be for the future, you know?
Yep. So did you ever have one of those moments where somebody was like, man, this is terrible? Like, you ever have anybody say, you know what, I want you to do something, and they were like, this isn't what exactly I had in mind, sir?
It's more so, I think it's more so like people who don't understand why you're doing something. So the whole process of me creating in the street at first, a lot of my like peers and people who support me were like, yo, why are you wasting your time? Like, what are you doing? It was more so this thing of this isn't, like, you're wasting your time out there. Like, nobody's gonna see it. You can't sell it. You can't, you can't keep it. So there was a lot of those moments on the way where like I was the only person that I think saw what I saw in terms of like, in terms of as an investment of sorts, you know what I mean? Like an investment of my time. There was those moments for sure. And, you know, there's always going to be people who purposely like try to like distort what it is you do, or distort your intentions. So I've dealt with that a lot, you know what I mean? You know, the street scene is an interesting one. Anybody who paints in the street, especially with spray paint, and especially in illegal spaces, you know that it's a very competitive scene, and there are people who are going to purposely like distort what you do, and so I dealt with that a little bit. But those things aren't the things that are bookmarked in my brain, you know. Those are the things that kind of get lost purposely.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So, man, in due time, I mean, we've been talking for 30 minutes, and we haven't even really got to like your art and your. So,
word.
In Detroit, you know what I'm saying? No, that's the downfall to this is we have like 40 minutes, an hour, but then there's so much going on. People don't understand, like, there's so much beyond the paint. People think y'all just get up here and you're just talented with a visual.
Oh no, it's so much more, yeah.
But you know, you're heavy in the community beyond belief, you know, and so that's a part of you. Your audio visual is a part of you, man. So I try to give people the inside, but in that time frame, it's kind of hard to fit it in, man. So
I appreciate it.
For sake of time, how did you end up at Murals in the Market, sir?
My man Rick, who is on the call just now.
Yeah.
So around the time, so this is crazy. So around the time of Exhibit B, that story I just told you, Rick Distinct Life had a T-shirt called Talented 10th, and I really felt like that was a perfect example of what we were doing in New Orleans with this space. And so I reached out to him on some cold call type stuff, like cold email type thing. And I'm like, yo, dude, I'm a big fan. I love to collaborate. I don't even remember what the framing of the email was, but what ended up happening, like Rick hit me back and he was like, yo, let's talk. And we ended up rapping, and that led to like a collab t-shirt where he re-put out the Talented Tint shirt, but he put Exhibit B on the side, the Exhibit B logo. And he gave it to me, or I can't remember what the deal was, but somehow he gave it to me as like a fundraiser for me to raise funds for the project. And then ever since then, we kept in touch. We kept connected. And I went out to Detroit a few times on some other projects. I have a painting at the Charles H. Wright Museum, so I remember coming out for that. I remember coming out for a bunch of stuff. Detroit, there's always been this New Orleans Detroit connection. There's this I don't know if it still happens, but there's this thing called the Allied Media Conference. And I used to be there like almost every year for a couple years straight. And so I was always in Detroit. So I ended up connecting with Rick while I was out there for the Charles H. Wright Museum stuff. And then I remember like he randomly hit me up and he was like, yo, there's this thing we do out here. And he showed me the mural he did with prior to the one that we did. And he was like, yo, we about to redo it, and I want to do it with you. Is that cool? I want to collab with you. And I'm like, yeah, man, that'll be perfect. And that's how the connection happened. Like he was the strong arm that said, yo, I wanted to do this with my homie. And then we started brainstorming. I remember it was so organic. Like I came out there, we were trying to figure out what to do. And I remember the day I got there, 1X Run had like like a welcome party for all the artists. And I think the young homie, man, what's the young homie name? Rick, what's homie name? He was there with his moms, and so Rick had his camera. I'm like, man, let's take a picture of homie so we could like maybe he'll be a good model for the painting. And that's how it happened. You know, it was just kind of real organic, which is the way I like to do murals, especially when I'm traveling. Like I don't like to come in with an idea because this is not my space. You know what I mean? I could share community, I could share space with people, and we come from a lot of the same struggles, but I can't assume that what I come up with in my head in New Orleans is going to resonate with what's happening in Detroit. Yeah, young Evan. And he was so cool, by the way. Evan was not fazed by this mural at all. Like, talk about affirmation. Evan was just like, whatever, dude. It was like, but yeah, so it was important to like organically like piece it together while being there. And, you know, that's Rick's camo in the back. So it was just a process of like collaborating in the truest extent. So, yeah, it was a fun process. It was my first time doing a mural festival. Actually my last time too. But it was still a great experience to be next to other artists and see their processes and you know, ask questions and just it was super dope. What's up, Cheese?
That's what's up, man. You know, I do tours. We talked about this, man, and obviously, this is easily one of the most popular murals, I think, of the project of all time. Like, really, like it's really one of the most talked about. Whenever I bring people here, they immediately want to take photos. Have you seen any of this like popping up all over the web and stuff? Have you seen
Oh yeah, constantly. I just had to I don't want to say check, but I just had to send a message out to the NAACP, my homie who's at the what's up, De Niro, St. Blance. I just had to hit my homie up at NAACP because they just posted it on their page, and I'm like, yo, son, like y'all just posted that mural, y'all didn't give no credit. So it's constantly. I mean, that's not all the time, but that is something I see a lot. Like people post it, like people taking the pictures in front of it. It's beautiful. That's when you know you did something that has an impact. When you see that the life of it is still just as strong today as it was when we first created it. You know, the level of engagement that I see, at least from my perspective in New Orleans, from Instagram, etc. So it's super dope, man. And I think that's how you know it works. That's how you know it's effective. That's how you know it's actually a function in the tool when other people are able to use it as well. And I remember Elder told me, one of my mentors told me a long time, and he's a native, indigenous, Native American Apache. And he was telling me, he said, when natives wove baskets together, it wasn't just for art, it was a tool that had a function. And he was challenging me to think about what function does the art have. And so to see it being used constantly lets me know that this piece still has a function. You dig?
Absolutely,
That's
brother,
true.
man.
There's deep New Orleans and Motown ties. What's up, Shaq?
Yes, yes, absolutely, man. Let's talk about that for a hot second, man, because unlike the weather, New Orleans it went through
Hmm.
their thing with Katrina, man, and Detroit is constantly going through its thing. So there is a lot of parallels between the two,
Yeah,
man. We talked
definitely.
about
Yeah, like actually a part of that Allied Media Conference, the reason that there was a delegation from New Orleans that was constantly at this conference was to discuss the similarities between. Okay, wait, look, I gotta specify. See, somebody just put in the comments, "I love your music, Bmike." So there's a Bmike in Australia that raps, and that's not this guy. We don't look alike, but maybe if you blow your eyes a little bit. So I hate to
it.
disappoint, but it's not the same Bmike. But let that man know that you love his music. So the track between the New Orleans delegation coming to Detroit was to sort of like compare and contrast and say, okay, here are two cities going through something very similar, and how can we learn best practices from what each community is doing and how we're responding to displacement, how we're responding to gentrification, how we're responding to neglect. And so that was like a very informative process for me. She said, well, or he said, well, I can't tell. So, so for me, it was like learning firsthand, like what Detroit was experiencing and how there's similarities. But mostly it was from talking with the people there, like some of my good friends that are out there, like joking with them about how much they love Detroit. And I remember one of my homies, she told me, she said, that's because we had to be our own cheerleader. And I'm like, dang, that's how New Orleans is too. Like for longest, we had to be our own cheerleader as well. So there's still like, I think there's this thread of resilience that both cities have, that they had to plant their flag and boldly wave it for everybody who said, nah, son, y'all done. And I think that's the thread that you see in New Orleans and Detroit that shines throughout everything. It's like, yo, there's this thread of resilience that's hard to dismiss. And when I went to Detroit for the first time, I couldn't help but realize it and notice it. And I'm hopeful that people that come to New Orleans, they also experience it. But like people like my homie Sydney James, like she's got family here in New Orleans. Like there's a lot of overlap of like family as well. Where one of my homegirls, Timmy, she got family in Detroit. It's like there's this whole overlap between physical family as well too. So yeah, I mean, and then you talk about the musical contributions. You talk about the architect of the current creative cultural scene. Both cities played a huge role and continues to play a huge role in that blueprint. You know what I mean? And so that, yeah, there's so much. I'm pretty sure somebody way smarter than me could connect the dots in more intimate ways. But that's what I saw when I first went to the city, and the many times I've been since, has been this process of connecting and like, oh, that feels familiar, or this looks familiar. Yeah.
So, man, you are working right now, man. Every week I talk to artists and I say, how's really COVID affected you? But you have really, I mean, you slowed down at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a moment in the beginning where it was just like there was no creativity at all for me. It was just like trying to figure it out. But now I've been blessed that ever since then, the studio, we just reopened about a month and a half ago, and as far as personal projects, it's been nonstop. It's been. I'm grateful for all those people that called, that hit me up and say, "Yo, you still doing projects?" And here's something I got for you. And then all the various live streams we did at the studio. The biggest one being the DNC convention. Is that DNC? Does the C and DNC stand for convention? Am I being
I think that
I don't
stands for
know.
convention.
Okay, I don't want to be redundant, like ATM machine. But yeah, so the DNC, they filmed live at the studio with the homie Cedric Richmond. So just all those small things that we did that really just continue to like give us reason to turn the lights on, even when the city was shut down. And so those were it's all been a blessing, and so I'm grateful that it's been nonstop.
So what's next, brother? What's next?
God willing, this story doesn't end anytime soon. That there's a lot more work to be done, a lot more to be said. And as an artist, I see myself as an interpreter of sorts. As long as there's stuff to be said, or who said that best? I can't remember who said it, but it was like, as long as there's a need from the community, then I have work to do. You know what I mean? And it's like I feel that way. The small role I play as an artist, as a visual communicator, I feel like as long as there's a need in the community, then I got work to do. And so I'm gonna stay busy. You know?
Man, you are not a small part. You are a much larger part than you believe. Most that said it. There's a city full of walls you can post complaints at, and that's where you are. You know, the message goes is up on walls, baby. So keep doing what
Definitely
you do.
appreciate it.
Where can we support you? You know, where can we get some art from you, man? I mean, what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, stay up with my Instagram, Bmike, and my website is bmike.com, bmike.com, as well as follow the Studio B page, studio_BE_. That's where I post a lot of like the more business stuff, like the prints and the t-shirts and all those things. But yeah, stay posted. You know, we're gonna continue to put some paint where it ain't. You feel me?
And if you could, you know, any youth that are thinking about getting into this game, what would you
Hmm.
tell them? What's the message?
You know, I remember hearing one of my favorite writers, Charlie Kaufman. He was asked to give some advice, and he said, you know, to give advice is to admit or acknowledge that I had a big role to play in why I'm here. And he said I have to admit that everything I've done has been half chance, whatever you want to call it, you know, blessing or intention or you know, law of attraction. But I do feel like I can't just 100% say I'm 100% responsible for exactly where I am. But with that, you know, I would say that anybody who's interested in doing art or creating, the best advice is just to keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like to keep as much as you can, as often as you can, do it. You know, that what you do most is that what you do best. So whatever it is, like just keep clocking in those hours. And then what you'll find is you'll start to separate the how you do it into the why you do it. And that's the beautiful part. That's the aha moment. When you could transition from just saying, okay, this is how I do this thing to saying, no, this is why I do this thing. That's when nobody can stop you. That's what's gonna keep you up at night. That's what's gonna wake you up in the morning. That's what's gonna get you moving. You know what I mean? And so I would just encourage all the young artists is to continue to push until you cross over to finding your why. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brandan Bmike Odums, New Orleans finest, baby. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
taking the time to come out once again, wake up, do this with us, man. I've been trying to get you for a minute because I knew
Nah, it's all good.
the
Appreciate
outcome
it.
was going to be exactly what it is. You dropped tons of knowledge, man, and I want to keep going and keep going and keep going. Thank you again, man.
Nah, thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate it.
let's link up, man, when this is all over and said and done, man, and we can fly like we used to fly and go paint like we used to paint. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. I feel that definitely. Nah, I appreciate the time. Thank you. Thank you for reaching
All
out.
right. All
And
right.
shout out to
All right.
everybody at Murals in the Market, everybody at 1X Run, my homie Rick, Sydney, everybody. Appreciate y'all. I love Detroit. It's a beautiful place.
See, I can't end it any other way. Brandon, thank you, brother. All right. We out.
All right, peace.